Hi class, we're going to do our last type of transformation, which is called a rotation. Alright, with rotations, what that's going to look like is it's going to be a turn. So remember, translations slide, reflections flip, dilations either get bigger or smaller, and for rotations, we're going to turn. Okay, just like wheels turn or Ferris wheels turn, those are all rotations. Or if you were to flip around or do a cartwheel or a spin, that's a rotation. We have two types of rotations. All right, one rotation, so if we're looking at right here, all right, we're going to the right. Okay, if we're going to the right for our rotation, we call that clockwise. All right, we abbreviate that as CW. So if we're going to the right, it's clockwise. And the reason why it's clockwise is because it goes with the clock. So if I were to speed up our clock, like this picture, notice if you were to follow it, it's moving to the right. Okay, so we can either rotate to the right, we can rotate clockwise, or we can rotate to the left. But they're not going to say it like that. They're going to call it counterclockwise. All right, because it goes against clockwise. It's the opposite of going clockwise. And we abbreviate that as CCW. All right, so counterclockwise is to the left, and then clockwise is going to be to the right. So if I were to rotate Albert right here, to the right is clockwise. And if I were to move him to the left, that's counterclockwise. All right? Besides what direction we're going, we also need to know our rotations by degrees. A 90 degrees rotation is only going to be a quarter turn. So if I were to rotate Albert 90 degrees, let's say clockwise, he would end up on his side. So 90 degrees clockwise, see how he ends up on his side? If I were to rotate him 90 degrees counterclockwise, he'd end up on his other side. All right, it is a half turn. All right, or a quarter turn. We end up on our side. 180 degrees is gonna be a half turn. All right. How's Albert going to end up if we rotate him 180 degrees? He's going to end up upside down. All right, so 180 is a halfway turn. If I do it clockwise, he ends up on his head. He's upside down, okay? Now, if I do it counterclockwise, how is he going to end up? Upside down again. Okay, so for 180 degrees, it does not matter which way you go. We're going to end up in the same spot. For both of them, clockwise, we end up upside down. Counterclockwise, we end up upside down. But that is not true for 90 degrees, because if we go clockwise, we end up on this side. If we go counterclockwise, we end up on that side. So we need to be careful. 270 degrees rotation is 3/4 of a turn. Okay, so if we go clockwise, I'm going to go, so that's a quarter, that's half, that is 3/4. Okay, now 3/4 turn, so 270 degrees is the same as a 90 degree turn in the opposite direction. So another way that I can do the 270 clockwise is just to do a 90 degree counterclockwise. All right, I can get to the same spot. Just like if we did a 270 counterclockwise, we'd end up there. We could also get to that same spot by doing a 90 degrees clockwise. So 90 degrees clockwise. All right, you get to the same spot. So 270, you can either do that or you could just do a 90 degrees turn in the opposite direction. For 360, that is going to be a full turn. So it's all the way around, and we're back where we started. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and look at these. So when we're going to be dealing with rotations, we will be dealing with it on the coordinate plane. All right, so once we get to these, it's going to be important that you look at your letters to tell what actually happened. Did it rotate? Was it a reflection? Was it a translation? You got to look at those letters. Just looking at this one. So this is my pre-image, my new image. All right, what kind of rotation is that? All right, good. We should have guessed 90 degrees clockwise. Looking at this one, which one is the pre-image now? Okay, our pre-image is this guy. Why? Yeah, because it doesn't have the tick marks. These guys have the tick marks, the primes. So this is my new image, this is my old image. What's going on? If you look, it's turning, and which way did it turn? Yeah, this whole thing, it's turning to the left, and it only did a quarter turn, so it's gonna be 90 degrees, and we turned it to the left, so counterclockwise, 90 degrees. We could have also said 270 clockwise, okay? But usually I try to do the 90-degree ones. I try to stick with that. However, if it were multiple choice and you didn't see that, our other option would be 270 clockwise. All right, looking at this guy. Again, who's our pre-image? All right, this guy's our pre-image. This is my new image because it has the primes. What type of rotation happened? Look at the letters. If you notice, it's now upside down. All right, if we end up upside down looking at those letters, that means it's a 180-degree rotation. And we can say 180 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise, either one. Or you could just say 180 degrees rotation. All right, now we're going to work with rotating on the coordinate plane. When we rotate on the coordinate plane, so listen carefully because this is probably our hardest transformation. All right, the first thing that I tend to do, so we want to rotate point A clockwise. The first thing I like to do is decide what quadrant should we end up in. So I find A, and if we're moving 90 degrees clockwise, so clockwise is to the right. We're going to the right, but we're only going to go 90 degrees. So 360, we end up back where we started, okay? 360 gets us back where we started. So 90 takes you to the next quadrant. 180 gets you halfway around the coordinate plane. Okay, does that make sense? So we're only doing 90 degrees clockwise, which means it should get us next door. We're going to end up being in this quadrant right here. What quadrant is that? Yeah, we should end up in quadrant 2. So usually I tend to write that just to make a note to myself of where I should end up, and then I look and see if I actually got the correct answer. Now, to get our actual point, our exact point, what we do is we're going to rotate our paper. All right, so I'm going to actually move my paper. So right now my paper, this is my paper. My paper is on my desk. I'm going to move it towards my right hand, okay? If we do 360, it starts back where it was. Oh, before we do this, real quick, I meant to draw a star at the top. So let's really, really quickly draw a little star for me all the way at the top of your paper. Okay? Next. So we're going to rotate our paper. We're rotating it to the right because that's clockwise. If we do 180, your paper should be upside down. Your star is now at the bottom. It's closest to your body. Okay? 360, we end up back where we started. So if we're only going 90 degrees to the right, 90 degrees to the right, the star should be on your right side. And the paper is now elongated. So this is what it should look like when we rotate our paper 90 degrees to the right. All right? So now the smiley face is further away from you. All right? The star is up over here. Okay? So I rotate my paper 90 degrees clockwise. I now look at this like it's a brand new coordinate plane. All right? This is now quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were to make that C, right? You make a C, quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, my whole thing that I need to do is I need to get to point A because we want to know what A prime is. So I'm going to start at the origin, and I'm just thinking, to get to A, am I going to move right or left? All right, to get to A, my finger, all right, because I'm counting from the origin. We move left. 1, 2, 3, 4. I move left 4, and then am I going to move up or down? I'm going to move up. 1, 2, 3. So we moved left 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at that. Left 4 and then up 3. So let's think about what that means for our point. If we moved left 4, all right, left 4 would be negative for x, so that would be negative 4 for x, and then we moved up 3. If we're going up for y, that means y is positive, so y would be positive 3. Now, when I come back, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and plot that. So negative 4 up 3 would actually be where this other point is that we don't even care about right now. But this would be our A prime. Okay? So, A rotated 90 degrees clockwise brings us right up there. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at the next one. And again, if we notice, going back to what we said, we would end up in quadrant 2. We did. This point is in quadrant 2. Let's look at the next one. So we want to rotate point B 180 degrees. Where should we end up? Well, 180 gets us halfway around no matter which way we go. So we're going to end up in 2 quadrants away. We should end up in quadrant 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Quadrant 4. And now, in order to find that exact point, we need to rotate our paper 180 degrees, which means our paper ends up being upside down. All right, now our star, my star disappeared, but our star is closest to our body. All right, so now we go here, and again, we're looking for B for number 2. So where is B? So again, new coordinate plane. This is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. I start at the origin. To get to B is my goal. So, to get to B, am I going to move right or left? All right, well, to get to B, we need to move to the right. We're going to move to the right from the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4. We move to the right 4, and then we're going to move down 1, 2, 3. So again, we start here. We want to get to B. We rotated our paper 180 degrees. By rotating our paper, we rotate the point. And now, I'm moving right 4, down 3. Okay? So then I go back, right 4, down 3. Let's think about that. If we're moving to the right 4, that means our x is positive 4. And then if we move down 3, so down 3 would be negative 3 for y. if we actually went and plotted that, so right 4 down 3, it would be right there, and we would call that B prime. Okay? And as we see, we did end up in quadrant 4. Okay? So perfect. All right, next, let's go ahead and look at problem 3. Now we're going to rotate point D 90 degrees counterclockwise. Counterclockwise is to the left. All right, we're only going 90 degrees, so we should end up in here, quadrant 1. All right, so go ahead and write quadrant 1. All right, that's where we should end up if we do this correctly. So again, we're going to rotate our paper 90 degrees clockwise. So 90 degrees to the left, which should put our star on our left-hand side. So 90 degrees to the left. Oops, there we go. All right, and let's see. So we are looking at point D. All right, so to get to point D, I start at the origin. This is my rotated point. I rotated it. This is what it's going to look like if we were to go graph it again. So I start at the origin, and I'm going to go. For I focus on right or left first. We go to the right. 1, 2, and then do I move up or down? I'm going to move up 1. So again, start at the origin. Right or left first, because that's our x. It goes x, y. We're going to move to the right 1, 2, and then up 1. Okay, so then I go back. So we said we moved to the right 2 and then up 1. So let's think about that. To the right 2 for our x, that would be positive 2. And then we said we moved up 1 for y. Well, that would be positive 1 for y. And we said we would end up in quadrant 1. Well, if we went ahead and plotted that, so 2, 1, that would be right there, and we would call that D prime. All right? When we originally rotated our paper and we moved this, all right, it was in that exact spot, okay? So on the SOL, actually, if you need to just pick which picture matches, you could just rotate your paper. You could plot this and just rotate your paper. You don't even have to plot it at the end. Just which one looks like your rotated paper. If you need the coordinates, though, that's when we need to plot it, rotate it, and think about what we're doing to get those coordinates. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next problem. We're going to rotate point D 270 counterclockwise now. Well, I actually prefer to not do 270, so for me, I'm going to do 90 clockwise. So I'm going to do 90 clockwise because remember, instead of doing 270, we can do 90 in the opposite direction. So I'm going to do 90 clockwise, which means I'm going to go to the right 90 degrees. All right, and my star ends up on the right. And what point are we focused on? So we are focused on D. All right, so to get to point D, we start at the origin. All right, we're going to move to the left 2 and then down 1. So again, we move to the left 2 and then down 1. Let's go back. So to the left 2 and then down 1. So for x, if we're moving to the left 2 spaces, x is going to be negative 2. And then we said we're also moving down 1. So for y, that's going to be negative 1. Guys, if it's hard for you to remember in your head what you were doing, you can write it down here. L2, and then do like a little down 1. So like this is what I usually tend to do. Down 1. And then I write what that's talking about. Okay? And real quick, if I did 270 counterclockwise, we would have gotten the same thing. So counterclockwise is to the left. 1, 2, 3. I end up on that side. All right, and again, left 2, down 1. I still end up with the same thing. So we could either do 270 counterclockwise or 90 clockwise. Let's look at the last problem. Now we're focused on point E. All right, and we're doing 90 counterclockwise. So 90 to the left. So looking at point E, we're going to go to the left. Okay, usually I have the easiest time thinking clockwise. I think of my clock. Here's my 12, 1, 2, 3, and you go with the clock, right? So counterclockwise, I go against it. So I'm going to end up here. We should end up in quadrant 1. So I'm going to rotate to the left towards my left hand. I rotate my paper 90 degrees. I'm on my side. We're focused on point E. Start at the origin. We move right or left. We're going to move to the right 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. And then we're going to move up to get to point E. My finger is actually moving up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we move left 4. Oops. Right. We move to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not even looking at those numbers. I'm just counting the spaces. And then we move up 5. Right 4, up 5. Right 4, up 5. So I could write that down if I want. Right 4, up 5. And then I'm thinking about it. If we move to the right 4, that means our x is positive 4. And if we moved up 5, that means our y is positive 5. All right, and that would get me in quadrant 1. Okay, does that make sense? All right, the last thing that I would like to talk about that isn't really on here, let's say that we were rotating this picture. All right, if we were rotating this, you would just do each point one at a time. All right, so it doesn't exactly fit, but like let's say that's point B. All right, and let's say we had point A right here. You would just rotate B, whatever it said, write down the coordinate, and then you would rotate point, oops, you would rotate A, so let's say we had A, B, C, and D. You would rotate each point separately, write down the coordinates, and then redraw your, and then plot all of them and connect the dots, okay? Does that make sense? You would write down the coordinates, so rotate your paper, write down the coordinates, draw it, and you would connect the dots. But if this were moving, it should be moving around. So if it were 90 degrees, it should end up on its side, standing up. All right, same thing here. 90 degrees, it should end up on its side, standing up. If we move it 180, it's just going to end up upside down, but it's going to look the same. So the only way that you could tell the difference is because of the coordinates. A and B would be on the bottom, C and D would be on top. That's the only way that you would be able to tell that this was a rotation instead of a translation. All right, you're going to go ahead and do the practice. Try to do these on your own and then check your answers once you're done with the first section with 1 through 5. All right. Once you're confident on 1 through 5, you're going to go ahead and do this problem. All right. You're going to rotate. Again, each point one at a time, you need to draw your new image. Notice how when you first rotate it, it's single primes. But we're going to rotate this original image again 180 for the next problem, and it's going to be double prime. You have to draw them after you get your points. And then last, so then check 6 and 7 once you're done with 6 and 7 down here. And then you're going to go ahead and do these other problems afterwards using the original points, all right? The pre-image points. You're going to answer these last questions, check it on your own. Once you feel good about this piece of paper, there's going to be one last practice on this stuff. Good luck.